Hey, AP Psych students, this is Mrs. Sewell. This is a makeup video on sleep stages. Be sure and pull that sleep stages chart that was set up in the with the Nearpod. That gives you all the answers here, and I think taking your notes in the sleep stages chart will make it a little bit easier. All right, so when we're talking about stages of sleep, we start with being awake. When we are awake and we're alert, so we're in a conversation, we're fully functioning. If you took an EEG, an electroencephalogram of our brain, so you put some electrodes on my head and you measured my brain activity, a person that's awake, you would see beta waves. It's really frequent, low amplitude waves, very active, all right? And so these are beta waves. Beta waves become important when we talk about REM sleep, so be aware of that. Right? As we start to slow down and relax, maybe we meditate or we're just kind of chilling out, maybe relax and listening to music, and our brain activity starts to slow, we start to see more amplitude to the waves and very slow and regular waves. These are called alpha waves. Again, this would be the reading on the EEG. So we moved from awake and alert to now awake but relaxed. So we see a different kind of movement on the EEG. You can't lie on an EEG. You can't fake sleep. That is, it's better, much better than a lie detector. All right. And so we start to see these alpha waves. Then, if we just keep relaxing, then we're going to fall into the first stage of sleep. All right. Our first stage of sleep is non-REM sleep. Non-REM means non-rapid eye movement sleep. We have one stage of REM sleep and 3 stages of non-REM sleep. So we're going to start with non-REM sleep 1. During NREM sleep, I'll just call it NREM 1. During NREM 1 sleep, that's when you start to drift off. So you're somewhere between those alpha waves of being awake and relaxed, and then the theta waves of NREM 2 sleep. And that's where you'll feel a sensation sometimes about you're falling. Some people float, okay? They call these hallucinations, sometimes hypnagogic hallucinations, where we get this sensation. Somebody said they spin, okay? Those are called hallucinations, and you experience these as you fall asleep. This is the transition from awake to asleep. You may also experience a hypnagogic sensation, sometimes called a hypnagogic jerk. That's where your foot jerks, okay? Or maybe your arm jerks, and so you get that sensation. So these hallucinations and jerks and things like that, those are happen during NREM 1. So it's in that transition from being awake and being actually asleep, okay? This stage of sleep does not last very long. All right, the next stage of sleep is this NREM 2 sleep, okay? This is the NREM 2 stage of sleep, again, a non-REM sleep, all right? And this is where we start to see the theta waves. So again, our brain's slowing down even further and we're relaxing in. This is actual sleep. If somebody tried to rouse you during this sleep, you would easily rouse. Now, if they tried to rouse you during NREM 1 sleep, you would probably not even think you had been sleeping. Okay, NREM 2, you're going to realize you're asleep and you're going to wake up pretty easily. Not much happens in this stage. We spend a lot of time there, about half the night in this stage of, just kind of lighter sleeping. But on the EEG, we'll see something called sleep spindles, and it's just these little bursts of activity. So your brain's really relaxed, and then you see this burst of activity, then it relaxes again. We don't know exactly what that is or why it's happening, but they call it a sleep spindle. So the big thing for NREM 2 sleep is sleep spindles. So you want to make sure you make a notation of that because it's the only way that we see the sleep spindles. All right. So after a while in NREM 2, about 20 minutes in the first stage, then you're going to sink into the very best kind of sleep, and that is, NREM 3 sleep. Okay, this is the best sleep. It's the sleep we crave. This is that deep, restorative, you're really down in there and really fast asleep sleep. During this sleep, we see delta waves on the EEG. And so there's these big, slow waves. You can see them in the bottom right-hand corner, okay? And so this is the best sleep. The younger you are, the more you get. The older you get, the less of the sleep you get, and we're always craving it. All right, it's going to tell you, whoops, I thought there was more on that one. I think I skipped a slide. Okay, With NREM 3 sleep, this is where you get really deep into sleep. And we will see in this stage, you'll see people having that sleepwalk. Children, usually children, sleepwalk or they sleep talk. If they do, it's in NREM 3 sleep, right? So be sure and write that down. Sleepwalk, sleep talk, or something called night terrors. Night terrors or where kids, they look like they've woken up. They're screaming, they're sweating, perspiring is the nicer way to say it. You know, their heart rate is elevated and they just act like they're terrified. They actually terrify everybody around them, probably more than they are. Then they go right back to sleep. They don't even remember that it happens. The same with sleepwalking and sleep talking. Usually the person that sleepwalks or sleep talks doesn't remember it. It's because they're so deep in sleep. And in order to sleepwalk and sleep talk, you have to get into that deep sleep and you have to stay there for a while. So sleepwalking, sleep talking, and night terrors will all occur in this stage of sleep. So if you see any kind of activity, like physical activity, then you're going to have to think NREM 3. Again, this is the really good kind of sleep, the ones that we crave. If I tried to wake you up in NREM 3 sleep, it would be much more difficult than in any other stage. If you've ever taken a nap, like maybe before dinner, and your mom comes and wakes you up and you don't know where you are or what day it is or what's going on, you think, oh, is it time to go to school? You know, you're just so out of it. You probably have been awakened in the NREM 3 stage of sleep. And so it takes you a little bit to kind of realize where you are, who you are, those kind of things. Okay, so again, this is the really deep, really good sleep, restoring sleep that we need, right? The next stage is REM sleep. This is, you know, there's only one stage of REM, 3 stage of non-REM. REM means rapid eye movement. This is where your eyes actually move behind your eyelids as you sleep. If you've ever seen your dog asleep, they actually have, you can see their eyes moving behind. Sometimes you see them kind of running or flinching in their sleep. As humans, we have something called sleep paralysis that kicks in during this phase, but dogs seem to have a little less of it. So in REM sleep, this is where we dream, okay? And so everybody dreams. You may think, no, I don't dream. If you think you don't dream, you probably just don't remember your dreams very well. Some of us tend to remember our dreams really well, and then others don't remember it so well. The interesting thing about REM sleep is that the waves on the EEG look like you're awake. It goes back to beta waves, and so they call this paradoxical sleep. The paradox is that you're asleep, but you look like, when you look at the EEG, it looks like you are awake. Okay, and so this is the rapid eye movement sleep. You know, towards the end of the night, you'll spend more time in REM sleep than anywhere. If you don't get enough, if you're sleep deprived and you don't get enough sleep, when you do try and catch up the sleep, you'll spend more time in REM. And this is where your brain is really active. It's as active as if you're awake. However, your brainstem essentially paralyzes you and keeps you still, so you're not hitting and kicking and doing those kinds of things during your sleep. Because you would, if you do those kinds of things, then you have a sleep disorder and you'll have to get some kind of medication for it. Okay. In REM sleep, again, you're going to see the rapid eye movement. You're going to see beta waves. It's called paradoxical sleep. If you are sleep deprived, so you pulled an all-nighter and then you're trying to make up the sleep, you'll spend more time in that makeup sleep in something called REM rebound. And so you'll have more REM sleep in the following one. So it's not as restful. You don't get as much of that delta wave sleep that really restores you. So you won't feel as rested on makeup sleep as you do when you get your regular sleep. So keep that in mind. We can't really make up the sleep we lost, okay? So we will get some sleep, but it'll be more REM sleep. All right, so this is really interesting and you really need to look at it. This is the pattern of sleep for a young person and it shows you the cycle. Remember, every 90 minutes we cycle through one cycle of sleep, okay? And so if you look at the young adults at the top, we're awake, right? We move down to NREM 1. We don't stay there very long. That's the transition. That's us falling asleep. And then we move down to NREM 2 and we kind of stay there for a little while, probably about 10 minutes or so. And then we come down and we spend quite a bit of time in NREM 3. Now we cycle back up to 2, so we just go back up. But remember, You don't go through NREM 1 again unless you wake up. So when we cycle back up, we go from NREM 3 to NREM 2, all the way up to REM because we're not falling asleep again, all right? So you spend a little bit of time in REM and then you cycle back down. You're still asleep, so we don't go back to NREM 1. We come to NREM 2, and then we come down to NREM 3, and we stay there for a while. And then we cycle back up to 2, and then up to REM. And then at some point in the night, you do wake up. And if you wake up, you're going to have to go 1, 2, 3, 2, REM, okay? You only cycle into NREM 1 when you wake up somewhere in the night. The other thing you need to look at is look how much NREM 3 sleep you get at the beginning of the night compared to the end of the night. As we get closer to our wake up time, we stop cycling down into that really deep sleep, and we'll just cycle back and forth from NREM 2 to REM. So that's where we get about half our night in NREM 2. And then towards the end of the night, we spend more and more time in REM. And when we wake up in the morning, we'll come out of REM. That's how we can remember those dreams. We usually just wake right up. If we wake up in our natural setting or with our alarm clock, we'll come out of REM sleep. And that's why some of us can remember those dreams. And you'll lose it sometimes by the time you get to the shower. Now, look at the chart for the older adults. Look at how little they spend in NREM 3. So as people get older, they spend less and less time in NREM 3. So I would say that's why old people are cranky. They don't get that delta wave good sleep. Also, look how many times they wake up during the night. So they're cycling back to 1 a lot more because they keep waking up. One way you can check this, we can all check this now, if you have a Fitbit or an Apple Watch, or if your parents have one, check their sleep. My husband watches this religiously. You can see how many times you wake up in the night. It kind of tracks that for you. But you can see as older adults, they don't cycle down and get that deep NREM 3 sleep, maybe 10 minutes or so. And so if sleep helps us restore our memory and things like that, that could be an explanation as why we get older, we don't have as good a memory because we're not getting that restorative sleep and NREM 3. So that's just a good comparison. I guess I'm sensitive to that. I'm not the best sleeper anymore, and so I think I can kind of feel this. You think, oh, I sleep good, and then you'll get older and then you'll be like, oh, I wish I could sleep good like that. All right, and so those are really the cycles. There's some practice problems if you want to jump back to the Nearpod, but I want to make sure to get you this sleep stage information for some of you that had missed it. So that's it for today. Thanks.